Good evening, everybody. This is Captain Tinsley, Salty Abandon, with another episode of Salty Podcast. This is episode number 29, and we have a special guest tonight. I did a teaser of this episode, and he had done some extreme sailing. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, amongst other things. So I'm going to go ahead and bring him out. And good evening, Robert. Do I call you Robert or Rob? I noticed you're in your email. It was Rob.
Either one's fine. I go by Robert mostly, though.
Okay, I'm going to call you Robert then. How are you tonight? Thank you for coming on.
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Yes. So where to start? I think I'd like to start with showing the teaser, because it shows your boat, and then it shows this wild situation that you were in. So let me show that real quick. All right. Now that you've told me that second boat, the one in the wild situation, is an Island Packet, now I see it. I was so busy looking at the waves and the wind and everything. So just for the listeners and the watchers, he has it is a 1982 Pearson 42, correct?
Yeah, it's a good intro because it shows all three boats that I've been involved in over the last 5 years.
Oh, there's three in the picture. Oh my gosh. Okay.
So the video of me bow riding and the teak deck, the really nice teak deck, that's a Beneteau 60, and I captained that full time for 4 years, just finishing in December. And then the storm video is that Island Packet 26 Mark II, which is my boat. I picked that up in down in Homestead, down south of Miami, over the winter. And it's been a little repair process, but it's not a forever boat. It's something I'm going to sell. That Island Packet name is enough.
Yeah, I recognize the cushions and the portholes, and as soon as I watched it that time, I could see it.
And then that self-portrait is my boat. That was on a big solo passage that I did on my Pearson 424. So you got all
the one
all
you're
three
on
of the boats.
right now.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's a nice bunch of boats there. So let's go back and start with the beginning. You grew up in Connecticut, is that right?
Yeah, I'm sitting right here in Niantic, Connecticut. Yep.
And that's where you spend your summers, and you winter in the Caribbean?
Yeah. I don't have a real set back and forth, but I spent the most time in St. Martin. That's sort of closest I've got to a second home, somewhere that I gravitate to on the trip south in the winter. But I've spent it like any liveaboard cruiser, anybody who works on boats. I've spent a lot of time in South Florida as well.
Okay.
But yeah, in the summer I focus on the Niantic area, but I spent pretty much a whole summer in Block Island before, and then I used to work out of Pelham, New York. So I spent a good 4 years. Spent about half of my time was on a boat out of Pelham, New York.
Well, I just learned about Block Island because I interviewed a guy from Rhode Island like 2 weeks
cool.
ago. So we were looking at anchorages. That's another question I'm going to ask you towards the end. I want you to name a couple of your very favorite anchorages. It can be anywhere, so you can be thinking about that. Let's see. Somebody in your family taught you to sail. Was it your father?
My mom. Yeah.
Your mom. Oh, okay. Yeah. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, my grandfather was a huge sailor, but my mom sailed with him, but didn't really, an amazing guy, but like people of that generation, didn't really pass on the skills in a deliberate way. My mom picked them up for herself. She became obsessed as a kid. She mowed lawns every day for a few summers and bought one of the original Sunfish right about when they came out.
Oh,
probably
wow.
Within the first years of them being made. And so she took that, she taught herself how to sail on it. She'd put a cooler on it and have her sister hold the main sheet because she couldn't afford a cleat and do races and never did very well. But and she'd sail it out to Fire Island. She was in Bellport, Long Island, so she'd sail it across the it's called the Great South Bay, I think, quite a distance, like 10 miles out to Fire Island, and then sail back at night.
Now,
And then
for
she
us
taught
challenged in that area, where's Fire Island?
Fire Island. It's this long, like really thin Long Island that creates a bay on the south side of Long Island. I think it's
Oh, it's on
just
the
about
south side of
halfway.
Long Island. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a big, salty, very shallow body of water that, I mean, shallow enough it used to freeze over in the winter. So Bellport and Patchogue are on the inside, and then on the outside. And Fire Island's become a huge vacation place for New Yorkers. It wasn't so much
Oh,
when my
really?
mom grew up there, but it is now.
Now, when did your mom grow up there, by the way?
See, that would have been 60s, 70s.
Okay. So the New Yorkers have figured it out. I see. At Fire
Yeah,
Island National Seashore.
yep,
Wow, it is a thin outer outer barrier island.
yep.
What was I trying to think? Okay, with some
and
houses.
and and
Okay,
because of Fire Island, the sailing on the inside of it, as long as you're shallow draft, because I think the deepest part of the inside is 6 or 7, but you can stand in most of it. But if you're shallow enough draft, the inside's amazing sailing because the wind is very, very good, and it's protected from the real ocean waves by Fire Island.
right.
So yeah,
Does the intercoastal go through there? Oh
they
no,
have their
no, I
own.
see.
They sort
Okay,
of have their own kind of intracoastal, but it's only powerboat. The bridges are way too low for sailboats.
okay, all right. Wow. Okay, that's I never knew that was there. So, well, I'm from I live in Gulf Shores, Alabama, down here on the Gulf Coast. So, I love learning about these places. Um, so you grew up and you were racing. You were
Yeah, so
racing dinghies and lasers.
yeah, my mom taught herself to sail and was obsessed with it, so she put me into a little it's like a Dyer knockoff, sort of a little sail kit dinghy when I was probably 6 or 7, and then by about 7 or 8, she put me into sailing lessons and I in opties, and I really took to it. So she pulled out the stops to make sure we put that boat in the back of a truck and go to regattas all summer. So yeah,
Wow. What a great way to grow up.
it was awesome. Yeah, and I had there was a good learning process there. I mean, the toughness of being some of those nationals and things like that, or it's blowing 25, you're out there for 12 hours, you're in the boat by yourself at 10, 11 years old. So
Wow.
there's a real toughness
Mm,
that has, and when I really think, I haven't thought about it in this way until just now, but it's probably a big reason for when you get into really tough situations where you have to stay up for 36 hours offshore, that that training as a child really makes it even more than the ability to sail. It's just that toughness and not quitting
sure. I always
mentality.
call
Yeah.
that a Gen X toughness. I don't know what generation you are, but I'm Gen X.
I
But
think
yeah,
I think
when
they call me an elder millennial.
oh, okay. Oh, you're close enough. Yeah. So, yeah, when I'm offshore and 36 hours, you just really got to want to be there, don't you? It's taking little
Yeah,
naps in the cockpit.
yeah, yeah. And even if you don't want to be there, you know what the payoffs are, and it's not
Yeah,
necessarily comfort or happiness, but it is a sense of achievement.
exactly. Yes, I love that. Okay, so what do you think? Well, we kind of talked about what your key lessons were that you learned from that, and we're talking about kind of some mental toughness. You definitely learned some skills. I've always heard that it's good to learn like on a dinghy or a sunfish, and I never did that. But I noticed that one thing you said was you recommended being self taught on a smaller boat.
Yeah, I'm careful. I think people need to have a good balance of conservatism and guts. People can judge for their own whether they have that or not. Don't just take off. But um, I mean, I hesitate giving that advice because I did learn so young. So sailing's in my nature. But I did
Right.
feel that a lot of the skills that I self-taught about big boat sailing um, were were things that you have to learn on your own because you can crew for people, and that's a good way to start. But at a certain point, you never quite the owner of it's the rare owner of a boat that really lets you put yourself into stressful, dangerous situations. And I don't mean sailing offshore. I mean docking, like just the simple stuff. So there's a point where you really have to start feeling out whether or not I should do this and what experience I need to gain before I do this. And I don't know that there's really any way other than being in charge of a boat. And
Uh,
and I think the
Totally
best,
agree.
yeah, learn to sail by buying a laser or maybe better to buy something with two sails, like a little jib and main sailing dinghy. I think it's best to buy something there's a racing fleet for, because you never learn faster than racing. And then yeah, get a little 20 something, or if you're a good enough sailor and you feel like it, I don't think there's a lot. I think buying the boat that you really want to spend a lot of time on is valid. And start off from anchor and mooring, where it's much safer, and learn how to dock with it. Just approach it carefully. And yeah, I think there's a lot of value to, in a conservative way, learning it yourself.
Yeah, and as far as docking, all of my trips from Alabama, Orange Beach, Alabama, on my boat down to the Keys and back, experiencing all different marinas with all different conditions, with different currents running through, different wind conditions. I feel I can almost handle anything now just from doing it over and over and being confident with it and having tons of people looking at me, and that's okay too.
Yep.
I've been hardened to that. So it takes a while, and I totally agree. Like I took all the lessons. I actually took all the ASA classes, but until I got out there and just with nobody around, nobody chattering in my ear, and okay, the sail. This is what's going to work with the sails. This is how the trim. I need to trim for this wind, and you know what I mean.
Yes. Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
by
I think
doing.
I think it's and I think that um, reading reading the books, reading a lot of. I mean, I like sailing stories. Really give you a sense of the dangers. I think they say knowing it's hard to know what you don't know when you're in the beginning stages of
Mm,
learning something. Actually, even I think it gets worse when you're in the intermediate and moderate stages of learning something, because
okay.
you really can start to feel like you're an expert and not. There's
Looks like we lost him, but he'll be back. Come on back, Robert. There he is.
Can you hear me? Oh, now I'm in there.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I've got you off there.
All
I'm
right.
going to
Um,
kick this one out.
I think the
Uh,
Starlink drops out every once in a while. That might have been it.
oh, okay. Yeah.
Um,
So you said it can be dangerous if you're kind of in that mid-level range
yeah,
of ability.
I think. Well, I think it's really great to listen to podcasts like this. Listen to all the sailing podcasts. The readings that are the books that are recommended, especially the extreme ones. Trying to cover that and be appropriately afraid of what you don't know is out there.
Right.
From
So you
dragging
must
anchor
know
through the
Michael
really big
Benson.
storms.
Do you know Michael Benson?
I do.
He said Rob dropped. Thanks, Michael. Thanks for watching, Michael. But yeah, yeah, I hear what you're saying. But that's why I have had all kinds of people on the podcast, like sailing schools, captains, people that move boats, surveyors, riggers, boat brokers, just so people can hear it from all aspects. And all kinds of stories have come out, from pirate stories to
Mhm.
whales hitting the boat. It just because I've talked to circumnavigators, and I've been in a hurricane.
Yeah.
What to do, what not to do, right?
Or even just these things are out there, so then you start thinking, what if I'm there? And before it ever happens, just thinking what if and how to
Right.
avoid being in that situation, and have an idea of what you would do if you were there. Um, I mean, from the very basic level, with the electric motor, one of the things what people argue is is, what if you're on a lee shore and you need to motor away from the lee shore? Well, you shouldn't. There's almost not any reason to ever be on a lee shore. I think that avoiding it in the first place. And what if your engine quits in an inlet? If it's at all possible, I have my sails up. I'm sailing in because it's safer. You have a plan. Once you have your sails up, you're a little scared of an inlet. Most boats are lost in inlets. Not going in at the wrong tide or in a rage. It's even if it's uncomfortable, it's safer. We know this from the Len and Larry Party. I'll give that recommendation. I think people could probably read those books and be a lot safer than the average person on their first cruise, because they sailed engineless and they were so conservative, and they would heave to and not enter inlets at night ever. And they sailed into inlets and they never had a problem. And they sailed into the wildest places like that, up on shortening sail area so that they can go at a slow speed and look out for coral heads. I mean, we have
Hmm.
coral heads are marked on our
Oh,
digital
wow.
charts now. And
Yeah.
we have an engine, and people are hitting them more than the parties ever did. So
Yeah.
I think that conservatism and planning ahead is an important thing. If you know what to plan ahead for, you've got a really good head start. And all the
Well,
podcasts and media we have makes that easy.
sure. Well, and since you talked about the engine, why don't you go ahead and talk about your electric engine?
Yeah, sure. At some point must have been probably 4 round trips to the Caribbean before I put it in. I knew ever since I had my boat, I knew that I at some point needed to take the diesel out and totally overhaul it. It was running decent, but it's just this rust heap, and there's only so much you can do while it's installed, like wire brushing and trying to touch up paint. You're never going to get there without pulling it out and taking it all apart and putting it back together. And with that looming expense and work for something that I really didn't like and didn't use very much, I realized that I was burning maybe 100 gallons of diesel a year with well over 5,000 miles a year. It's just not my sailing style. My mom and I sailed back from Bermuda um, one year, and it should take 4 days, 4.5 days maybe. And I think we took just about 7 days. I did an
You
average of
just
3 knots,
refused
and
to turn on that
yeah,
engine.
just out of stubbornness. I mean, because I don't like the noise or the noise mainly, or the maintenance or the smell and worrying about it. So I carried a jerry
Sure.
can of diesel so that we could get in. And
Yeah.
when we had no wind, I motored until the last bit was gone. I refused to buy the $12 a gallon diesel in Bermuda, and we
Oh my
drifted under
gosh.
spinnaker. The birds were swimming next to us faster than we were sailing. I mean, literally for a day that was happening. The shearwaters, and they really
And
like
what were
to
you
stick.
guys? Y'all are just like, no, we're not in a hurry.
Yeah, there are a few people who would. But I learned from my mom, and she was like that too. She did want me to buy more diesel, but it was a beautiful trip. You rarely get to sail. You rarely get to be on the ocean with perfectly flat conditions and mirror finish to the
Okay,
water. It
so
was
what
really
would you
beautiful.
have done if it was rougher? Would you have hurried along a little faster?
Well, if it was rougher, I'd be sailing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there'd be wind. Okay. So you thought so that's worked out good for you, the electrical engine,
Yeah,
the electric engine.
it's I did. It was important to me to prove it and do full solar electric down to St. Martin and back offshore. And I did without
Wow.
any problems. In fact, I had a used bank of batteries because I couldn't afford the brand new system. So I came back from St. Martin with 1/3 of my batteries out, and it was
So the
fine.
solar can keep the engines charged up?
Yeah, my trip down to St. Martin and back was essentially like sailing an engineless boat, except I could motor in and out of inlets and motor the first hour or two and the last little bit.
Okay.
Um, so that's the disadvantage, is the real range restriction. I have a bigger bank now, but it's still not. We're talking about maybe 10 hours of motoring at 4 knots. Like, you really don't have much range. Um, the advantage is this huge lithium bank and substantial solar, because powering an electric motor takes so much more power than anything else. You have it feels like an infinite house bank. So I have I built a gimbaling convection oven with an induction cooktop. So I don't have any worry about explosive propane anymore. And the convection oven is way better than you've dealt with gas ovens on boats. They're not fun. So I just never baked anything before, and now I'm really happy to use it. So that's a big advantage. The another real advantage is on these long ocean passages is if you're getting at all worried about power. First of all, you're saying like, well, now I'm after 3 days of clouds, now I'm getting down to 50%, and you still
Yeah.
have half the bank left. So that's what worried about power means in this circumstance. And
Right.
if I'm sailing over 6 knots and I start spinning the propeller to generate power through the electric motor, then I sometimes get up to a kilowatt power.
Oh,
Yeah.
so that it
So
works that way. Okay.
yeah,
It
it's
kind of
just
acts as a wind generator, but in the water.
yeah, and much more power than a wind generator makes.
Right.
Yeah, I think the
Interesting.
minimum is maybe 4.5 knots for my boat, and at that speed, I'll generate 100 or 200 watts, which isn't nothing. Yeah.
What about a water maker? Because I know those take a lot of. I don't have one. That's about the only thing I don't have. But
Yeah,
later I'll get it.
yeah, I don't have one. It's been I haven't really had the need for it in the Caribbean. It's a big boat with not many people on it, so I have the
Yeah.
I have good water
Plenty of water.
storage. I would, I would. It's on my list of, pick one up for a bigger around the world trip or something like that.
I bet you
But
can
yeah,
make one. You sound like the kind of guy that can make one.
yeah, I've thought about that too. Like, yeah, and it would be cool because it sort of separate the components out and take up less space that way. Yeah.
Now you have a girlfriend. I saw you called her Captain Girlfriend.
Yes.
Does she do all these trips with you?
She's working, not yet. We've only been together for a little under a year. But so I left the Pearson in on the hard for the winter last winter. I knew my job was wrapping up. I had a death in the family, other stuff I had to clear up.
Oh,
So last winter I
okay.
took off. But she did do the Norfolk to Connecticut. There's a 4-day jump on the Little Island Packet this year. And
Oh, she
she
was on the
has
boat with you when
yeah.
that big storm. Where was that storm, by the
No,
way?
the storm was off of Charleston. I was solo at that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
My gosh. Okay.
Yeah, we had pretty decent weather, but we have no autopilot, so it was just swapping off hand steering.
Oh,
So
wow.
it was a good trip, but it was a little hardcore. But
Little hairy, yeah.
yeah, Michelle
Um,
just got her 100-ton license, and I've held my 25-ton for the last 5 years, and upgraded with the last boat gave me the tonnage, so she actually beat me to the 100-ton.
okay, so you have the 100 now, or you're about to get it?
Yeah, they're sending it out any day. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I've got
yeah,
the 25.
yeah.
Someone told me that that was worthless for anything, but
I don't know. I mean, yeah, everybody who has the 100-ton,
I mean, the
there's
25, they said the 25 was that you couldn't really do
well,
much with that.
yeah, because everybody has the 100-ton from, they were on a ferry and got the captain to sign off for them or something, some silly stuff like that in the industry. So, but yeah, everybody has the 100. So those of us who were honest and signed on with our own boat and actually didn't lie about it, sort of, you look a little
Yeah.
funny, but.
I figured I'd be scared they'd check, all those records, that's the most stressful part of that whole application. It's like, oh
Yeah,
my
yeah.
gosh. Let me just show this. I want to show this this video here. Let's see if we can get this up here. Now this is on your TikTok that you don't know about. Let me pull this down.
That one I did post forever ago.
Well, I wanted to show that. I love it when this happens.
Yeah.
It's just the best feeling when all those beautiful dolphins come swim with your boat. And there's a lot of them there.
Yeah, that was one of the bigger pods that I've ever sailed through.
What boat was this?
That was the Beneteau 60.
Okay, and then I guess this is another video. And this is the Is that the island packet, or that is still the Beneteau?
That's still the Beneteau. Yeah.
Okay, so you spotted those things at night.
Yeah. That one, that might have been that we just hung out on the bow with them for so long, the sunset.
Oh, wow.
But
I
yeah,
just love that. That's a very special part of sailing, wouldn't
yeah,
you say?
yeah. It could have been we hung out with them on the bow until the sunset, or it could have been, it's happened to me a few times. You're sitting in the cockpit on watch, and there's a huge splash next to you that just scares the pants off you, and you're like, "What the hell?" And it's a dog. Yeah, I think they notice that they can surprise you, right?
That you're not
But then,
paying attention.
yeah, well, I mean that splash next to you, they make themselves known, and then so we every time that happens, I'll turn on the light, and
Let
they
me add,
keep
let me
lighting
add this
spotlights.
one.
One time, baby, memories got me. Two time, baby.
Let me turn off the sound. And that boat is
That's the Beneteau
the
also.
is that decking is just oh, here we go.
That one was nice to take videos on the bow because if it's 9 or 10 knots.
Wow. I noticed you, and you weren't by yourself, were you? Because I've done things like that, and I got lectured.
This this one right here is around Hatteras. There's a good wave spray in a second.
Wow, look at it's healing over.
Yeah, so I think none of those were by myself because those were offshore videos and the insurance required 3. But the insurance didn't require it for that's my boat. That's the Pearson.
That's that's your current boat.
Yeah, that was a trip out to St. Martin. That was from Norfolk out to St. Martin.
There you are.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
The solo on the Pearson, I have lots of offshore stuff out on the bow and etc. Solo. On the I'm obviously for work more conservative with the Beneteau. So my boss let me do. He was actually happy to because it would save crew costs and he knew I was able to do it. So coastally, I would do some solo.
Okay.
But on the Beneteau, I kept it to well under 24 hours because just even with autopilot, just making sure you stay rested. I'd do maybe 10 to 14 hour trips at the most. And I don't really like doing Long Island Sound at night. Or anything real coastal at night.
Why is that?
I'm so used to
wanna-
offshore. It's safe. It's safer offshore. You don't have anything to. That's the benefit.
Listen to you laughing here.
Yeah, I love storms.
That's a beautiful light show.
Yeah.
I've been out there before when it was like that. Vertical lightning,
Yeah.
by myself in the middle of the night, and all of a sudden there's
Yeah.
vertical lightning in front of me. I did turn around because I tried to wait it out. Then the storm started moving towards me. So I was like, good grief. I got to go back to Clearwater.
Yeah.
I lost like 12 hours and had to start over again. Okay, so those are some really cool videos there. Nothing too crazy. So you lived in a van.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did that happen? It's a cool idea. If I wasn't living on I live in a house, but I'm fascinated with boats and vans, so I think it's cool.
That happened. It was before I lived on a boat. I knew I wanted to live on a boat. The Pearson was my grandparents bought it when the year I was born, and in my mind, it's always been a huge boat. So I didn't think that I would be able to afford it. But it had come down. The surveyed value when I bought it, put quotes on that because it was paying off other parts of the family. The surveyed value was $15,000. I just had even though I had some experience in the boat world, I had no idea that it would be in that range. Just a lot of maintenance had been. My grandparents had gotten old, and the boatyard didn't really do everything that they did minimal, which is a pretty normal thing. It's not really the boatyard's responsibility necessarily, but
Right.
I didn't think that I would be able to afford it. So I wanted to not be living in my parents' house after college, and I wanted to live in New York City, but I didn't want to pay rent because New York City rent. And so I bought a van and spent probably about half of my time those 2 years living in the van.
And where did you live in the van? I mean, where did
Mostly
you
in
park it?
mostly in Brooklyn, but between Connecticut and Brooklyn mostly. Yeah,
Like at
and it
somebody's
sounds
house?
no street parking, and it's actually easier to live in a van. Uh, finding somewhere to dump and things like that is difficult. Finding somewhere to go to the bathroom, I didn't have one in the van, can be difficult. But the parking situation is actually ironically easier in New York City because once you have to be good at finding parking. But they have street sweeping. This is a van life tip, and I'm not afraid to blow a spot or anything because New York's huge. Go into deep Brooklyn, find a good area that has spots, and then they have street sweeping. So you have to move every 2 days or so. And that's the thing that makes it easy because
Okay.
nobody's worried about a van being parked out because they know they're always moving. So
Right.
you can park whatever you want there as long as you follow street sweeping. So it actually, I mean, it's either that or, Walmart will let you park for a night, but parking in
Sure.
a neighborhood in Connecticut, that's not, somebody calls the
It's not
police
gonna
immediately.
fly.
It's just not. So it can be hard to find a spot in the Northeast.
Yeah, it's a whole art out there on videos, stealthy parking in a
Yeah.
van and how to make it look like a work van and all this stuff.
I did
There's
have
a whole
a
community out
Sprinter
there.
van, so it looked like a plumber's vehicle, so that helps. But
Okay.
in New York, they don't. You can park an RV on the street and have the lights on. You're okay.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
that's cool. So
as
how
long as you
long
move.
did you do that? As long
That
as
was
what? As long as you
as
moved.
long as you move for street sweeping. Yeah. Yeah. It was a little less than 2 years,
Okay.
and then
And then you
when
moved
I
on to the boat.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And so in the winter, are you living on the boat or are you putting it up on the hard?
Most winters I go. There are 2 winters in Florida, 4 winters in the
Oh,
Caribbean.
that's right. The winters are south and the
Yeah.
summers are. In the summers, what I meant to say, are you living on the boat
Yes.
up
But I did
Connecticut?
do one winter at the dock, um, in Connecticut, which was pretty rugged. Um,
Wow.
and then one winter on the hard. Yeah.
I mean, the water didn't freeze.
It did. It was a little bit, the marina that I was at is a good liveaboard marina, and they were ready. They have bubblers and stuff to go in if it didn't get to that point. But I got
Okay.
about probably a half inch of ice. I woke up that morning hearing it's a very calm place, but even so, you hear just a little bit of crunchiness.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That wouldn't be that's not good on a boat, is it?
No. Well,
It's not
that amount's okay, but yeah, and you start to get worried about it being more.
right. Okay. So, let's see. So you transitioned to boat life, and you said you found van life harder
Yeah,
than boat life.
because of the
And why is
parking
that?
situation.
Oh,
Yeah,
because
it's
of the
just
parking. Okay.
yeah, you have this image of like, opening up the back doors when you wake up to the beach, but I mean, where can you actually do that? It's a
Only
pretty
on
challenging thing.
Instagram.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I have a beach that I could do that because my mom lives in a community with beach parking. That would be like it's sort of the same thing as living at my mom's house. It's right there on, that doesn't, it, it would be really difficult to, all the beach parking that you
Maintain
pay for
that.
and all of that, you can't park overnight in those places. So,
Right.
yeah, dropping an anchor, there's much more freedom to drop an anchor than there is to park.
Have you found that in Florida, I know there's more and more restrictions, let's say within the intercoastal. They're trying
Yeah.
to do so much away with that, which is
Yeah.
sad.
Miami's particularly difficult. There's essentially, I mean, you can anchor, there are tons of places to anchor in all of South Florida. Yeah, I hear
Just
about
try
the
to
anchoring.
stay away from a big mansion that might not like it.
Right. Yeah, I've never really run into I know they're there. I haven't really run into the anchoring restrictions, and I see tons and tons of places to anchor throughout Fort Lauderdale, which was the hub of anchoring restrictions, in Miami, where the mayor is very antagonistic. There's tons of anchoring. There's not anywhere to
Okay.
go ashore. It's very hard to find shore access. So
Even on a dinghy, I mean,
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
There's some nice places. I know the west coast of Florida much better. I go from
mhm.
here all the way down. and there's enough, to get what you need. Go to a grocery store or whatever.
Yeah, in Miami, Dinner Key Marina, you can rent a
Mhm.
mooring it's specifically for
That
liveaboards.
is a huge place.
It is. They still, don't count on it on a trip south because it's still, you can't use the dinghy dock from anchor. You have to rent a mooring. I think there is one next door, but
Oh,
they're
really?
it takes calling over and over and over again for a few days, usually in the winter to get it's full because that's really the only really viable liveaboard spot. Over by South Beach on the inside, there are a lot of liveaboards anchored. I have no idea. You've got to go figure it out with local knowledge. I have no idea where they go for a dinghy dock. You can get a
Okay.
membership to the Miami Yacht Club, I've heard, but I think they only kind of tolerate dinghies, and then they'll have an event for a week that stops your dinghy access. So I think there are a lot of people who are sort of pulling up into mangroves and stuff and risking losing their dinghy. And the Miami Beach mayor is very antagonistic to
Really?
liveaboards and cruisers. They really it's South Florida. They just want the super yachts down there.
Yeah. Dinner Key allows liveaboards. I've stayed there, but I was just using the dock before I went to the Bahamas on my
Yep.
27. But they do have liveaboard. Do they have liveaboards in the marina and on the mooring balls and
Yeah.
Anchorage?
Yep.
Okay. Uh, I remember I stood at the top of my boat and just pointed the camera, and I don't remember how many slips there, but do you have any idea? It's huge.
It's impressive. I don't know how many slips, but it's huge. Yeah.
And then you've got all the slips, and then you have all the huge mooring field, and then
Yeah.
the anchoring, and woo. And then the accommodations are nice.
It's really nice. The only problem with the place is you want to have a pretty. I did it with the rowing dinghy that little island pilot came from, and it's almost a mile in and out.
Oh,
So
wow. Well, you
so
stay in
it's
shape.
yeah. And it's a really rough, it's a very exposed mooring field. So
Right.
you want to have a good dinghy, because especially if you're a bigger boat, you're farther out. I think probably most of the mooring field is more than a mile from the dinghy dock, and it gets really rough and choppy. You can have good 2-footers with just a regular.
Kind of like being in Key West. Those
It's very
guys
similar.
coming, and they have a good dinghy dock down there at Key
They do.
West Bite Marina.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's very organized and
Key
everything.
West and Marathon are probably the best. I think Marathon is the
Yeah.
best liveaboard place in Florida, and then in South Florida, and then Key West is the only thing wrong with Key West is that it is exposed. But
Yeah.
yeah, good dinghy docks, except they are tolerant of liveaboards. Yeah.
Right. And they have a section if you want to reserve one, and then that's more expensive. Then you've got a section where you just first come, first serve, and that's a little cheaper.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems like Marathon and Key West, they kind of cater to they welcome them. They welcome
Yeah.
liveaboards. The Key West Bite Marina I have a friend that has been there for years. He pays like $850 a month. I mean, he's grandfathered in. It's a city marina, so they don't kick him out, but
That's
they're
nice.
not taking on new people.
Yeah.
But that's kind of common, isn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna come back to anchoring. I pulled up your InReach link, and it was a
Mhm.
crazy spider web of from New England down all the way to the East Coast, and then around to like the Keys, and maybe even on the lower Southwest Florida.
Yep.
I think, and all the way down. I guess you just went to St. Martin.
The first time I went to St. Martin was 2017 or 2018, and then
Well,
most
it's
winters
quite a
since I've
spider
gone.
web of activity
Yeah.
that you've been sailing through there. So, what do you think? What do you take from all this now? How do you feel about your? What have you learned from it? About your
I'm really,
abilities
I'm particularly proud of that map, and I do want to sort of turn it into some sort of a clickable log or something, because yeah, every way to get to the Caribbean and back I've done, except for the most common way, which is go to
Yes.
Florida and then tack through the Bahamas to Dominican Republic to the Windward Way. That's
Oh,
the
you
only
haven't
way I
done that.
haven't done. No, because I don't want to tack to Windward for that long. It takes months to get there. Um, yeah, it's obviously you have to be confident in your weather abilities and your boat,
Mm.
but it is harder to do that than it is to sail offshore from Norfolk or Beaufort to straight out past Bermuda down to St. Martin. That's an easier, at least the toll it takes on you and the time it takes. It's easier. Um, so yeah, I love offshore sailing. I am very proud of having done it every which way. There's probably Bermuda's 650 miles offshore, and you probably can't go 80 miles without finding one of my tracks between Bermuda and Norfolk. I'm proud of that. The confidence is nice, and
Yeah.
it it makes the North Atlantic really feel like my home. From Connecticut to Bermuda to St. Martin and everything in between. And it does make me really want to do, Michelle has a transatlantic. I don't have a transatlantic. It makes me
Ah.
want that transatlantic. It makes me want to go. I'd love to go circumnavigate South America. I want to see the other side of the ocean. I want to see the Pacific. I want to do some more. That's what's next. Do
So
some
that's
more.
on it's on the list.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds a little scary for me to go from, did you say Hartford, Connecticut,
East Lyme is where I'm.
to
Yeah.
Bermuda? That's and you've done it many times.
I've gone Bermuda to Connecticut many times. I
Okay.
very often, because I'm so conservative, I aim for Bermuda. The weather window isn't happening in the way I want, so I sail down to Norfolk and then I leave from Norfolk to either Bermuda or St. Martin. Um, the one I have done it in for the Bermuda race, I've done it a few times, and but that's in June. And the weather situation then is totally different. And I've done it on my boss's boat from New York straight out to Bermuda. Um, but yeah, on my own boat, you have to be very careful in November. And so have no I have no qualms about admitting that I've been conservative. That weather window isn't panning out or not in the way that I want, and so I take off for Norfolk. It doesn't it adds a few days to the whole trip. It's not that bad.
Michael has a question here for you. Is 90 to 120 days a decent amount of time to explore the Caribbean? Thinking of January to April personally, Southeast Caribbean, Western Caribbean of personal interest.
Yes. I'm going to assume that that's January to April. January is a
Mm-hmm.
rough time to get there. That's the
Yeah.
that's the one issue with that. So
I know the
Michael,
Gulf is no fun in December and January, and I've not sailed
yeah.
in the Atlantic except when I went to the Bahamas, but the Gulf is just a beast.
So if he wants to clarify, I'm going to assume the boat's already down there, in the answer. If he wants to clarify about getting there, it's
Yeah,
doable.
Michael,
I can
let
make
us
that happen.
know where you're starting from.
But I have heard of people going from Trinidad to probably even to USVI and hitting every island that is generally of interest. You have to skip some, but that you sort of skip the ones that people commonly skip. I've heard of people doing that whole thing in a month. Um, you know, a couple days in each spot, going by the guidebook, just hustling all the way. So having a few months, you can touch every good notable island and get a good survey, for sure. Yeah,
How long do you like to stay in each place? Because
I really
sometimes I
like.
like to stay a few days, and explore and everything.
Well, I've spent several almost full winters in St. Martin. I like having a
Yeah.
home base and really getting to know a place.
Yeah.
But I also, in those years, I wasn't. That was before I was captain. Mostly that was before I was a full-time captain. So I was also. It really it really served me to be somewhere and then know people well enough, and I'm right there and available. St. Martin is probably the best English-speaking hub for sailing. Um, and so I'd pick up deliveries because I knew people and stuff like that, and sort of keep the 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 work going, and be able to survive.
Caribbean by fall, probably South Carolina, Georgia point of departure in January.
Yeah, and I know Michael, so I know it's a West Sail 32. I know
Okay.
I know somebody who left Norfolk in January
He
in a
says
West Sail.
Chesapeake rather. He's
Yeah,
saying
okay.
Chesapeake.
I know somebody who left the Chesapeake in a West Sail 30, not a West Sail 32, in a Rawson 30, in last 2 years ago um, in a 30-foot boat, a little bit slower than a, yeah. It's a good boat. You can do it. It'll be really uncomfortable before even probably right after the Gulf Stream. But it gets warm quick, and you doing it from the New England. Michael's from Jersey. Doing it from Jersey would be a no-go that time of year. It's a truly insane trip. But doing it from the Chesapeake is doable, and you can even make it incrementally better by going down through the ICW to Beaufort, and leaving from Beaufort makes it even a little bit easier. You're really close to the Gulf Stream there. Um, yeah.
So you wouldn't recommend staying in because it's January, staying in this intercoastal until you get to Florida?
Once you get to Florida, it's that hard upwind trip, and leaving in January to Florida, you're gonna take 2 to 3 weeks in the ICW, and then
Oh, yeah.
it'll take it'll probably take somebody doing it for the first time 2 months to get to the Caribbean from Florida going that route. Um, if somebody's confident in their boat, confident in their skills, and truly ready to go offshore, be conservative, then it's a not too bad 2-week trip nonstop from Chesapeake or Beaufort to St. Martin, for example.
Okay. And so
Even at
Michael,
14
how
days,
about
15 days
Michael's
in a boat like that.
skills?
He's yeah, we can get him. He sailed with me in 2016.
Okay, that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Well, he's probably got a lot more experience now. By the way, back here, he said something about this. He said, "Don't doesn't take a whole lot to additional greater tonnage sea time for a 100-ton upgrade on my reissue. My first license was 25
In
ton."
in fact, I've heard of. I don't know how long. I don't know how long you've held your license, but I know that people get sort of upgraded on, or their license their tonnage goes up on upgrade sometimes without hitting the requirements, just by years having the license. I've heard of that happening too.
Well, I had to prove all my additional hours.
Yeah.
I've had it, I guess, about 7.5 years. So I went through the 5-year renew, and I went
Right.
ahead and upgraded that time because I had gotten so many hours, and I got the sailing endorsement. So
Yeah.
now I have the sailing endorsement and the 25 ton,
Yeah.
and then
I've heard
I'll
of
be
people
able to
getting.
upgrade again.
Yeah, I've heard of people on the upgrade submitting the same hours in the same boat, but getting their tonnage bumped up anyway. I don't really know the details of that.
So they
Um,
lied.
no, just sometimes they say that having lots of experience on smaller vessels, they'll give you the license for larger, which makes. I mean, I was able to upgrade to 100-ton. The Beneteau is a light boat. It's 48,000 pounds. Um,
Oh, so
30,
you're talking
35
you're
gross tons. But
yeah, I think that's the hours of your own boat is what counts. I don't think it has to be like a bigger boat or anything. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, well, people get upgraded for, it's a not clear reason sometimes. I think sometimes that they
Okay.
will look at the length of time you've had the license and just give you a bigger tonnage. But also the amount of time matters significantly. Like I have so much time on the Beneteau, which is a 35 gross ton boat, that I'm eligible for the 100-ton. It's not a 100-ton boat, but
Right.
you have and you need less time on a 50-ton than a 35-ton to get the 100-ton. So they really take
Okay.
into account the
Oh,
amount of
okay. I didn't
time.
know that. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a part of it I didn't know. So your first job, your primary job would be to be a boat captain, would you say? That's
Yes.
your primary
Yeah.
job. Then you've got a secondary job.
Yeah, it was my primary for a long time, wedding photography, and general photojournalism, but primarily wedding photography. And I still do a few per year. yeah, I studied photojournalism, and so wedding photography, the storytelling style of photography really lends itself well to wedding photography.
So you should be making $1 million on your TikTok account.
I really should. I don't. I'm trying to do the social media thing more, which is why you noticed me.
Yeah, and I am
but
too.
I'm
So that's why I
I'm
noticed you.
very
Yeah.
I'm very bad at self. I call it hustling, especially when I was trying to do wedding photography. I'm bad at hustling.
Marketing yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, you got the goods here though. I mean, with these
I appreciate it.
videos. Yeah. Whenever I've been in a big situation, I always afterwards I'm like, why didn't I pick up the camera? Because it's great. It's great footage. That's the kind of stuff that goes viral, but I'm usually holding on or trying to think what, I'm going to do and
Sure. Yeah.
trying to stay alert and trying to stay clipped in and all that. But you have a knack for grabbing the camera. Let's see, what have we left out? You mentioned you were on a podcast. I'm not sure when that was, but is it Manic Bay Yacht Club?
Niantic.
How do you say it?
Niantic. Niantic.
Niantic. Okay. So what is that? That's like a special place to you, I think, because you had
Yeah.
early experiences there.
That's where I took sailing lessons as a kid. This is right where I'm sitting. It's where I learned to sail. I'm on a mooring right off of the Niantic Bay Yacht Club. So it's a little sailing club that's in my hometown. And it's very not so heavy into the ocean sailing. There are only a few of us that do that, but it's very heavy into dinghy racing and PHRF racing. Handicapped
I
keelboat
found it.
racing. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, so your plan is to kind of keep your current routine where you're going to spend the summers north and do you ever see yourself going permanently south?
Never permanently south. I like I don't want it gets too hot and no wind down there. If I went
I know about
permanently
that.
south, I would in the summer I would head further south. Well
Okay.
further south down into South America or something. I don't think I'm going to keep this routine though. I think that probably not this year, but maybe next year. Starting with the Caribbean in the winter, head out on a much bigger trip. Yeah, Michelle and I have been thinking about doing something like that. She's
We'll
been to
have
the
to
South
follow
Pacific.
up on this one. Where are you going to go?
I'll just say that the dream trip, or as much as it exists right now. I think my dream is going around South America. I want to go around the Horn and I want to go through the Straits. And Michelle's up there on her list is the South Pacific, and so merging those together, I think would be down to the Caribbean for the winter, sail up to Bermuda, and back to New England, and then do in the summer, in the early summer, do up like Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, set off for going across the Atlantic, and then come down Europe, go to the Canaries, and in November come back across, but instead of going to the Caribbean, sail across the Atlantic to Brazil, and then sail down the coast of Brazil, maybe Falkland Islands, go around, go through the Straits and back around the Horn, or vice versa, and then sail out off the Pacific side of South America to Easter Island, and then the known
Wow.
South Pacific islands. I think that would be
When do you think this is going to be? This is awesome.
It's in the dream phase. We have a lot that's keeping us US bound at the moment. But there's an outside chance that come spring, this coming spring, we're looking at it. But I think in a more serious way, we're going to consider it for the next year. So that would be the transatlantic would be 2026.
There are
in
a
the
lot
spring.
of guys saying that you are a lucky man to have met a woman like this. I mean, there's just not that many women that would like, let's go,
Michelle makes me look rooted. She's this is, I think, the longest stretch that she's spent in the United States for 10 years, and she's only been here for a year.
So you're like the more conservative one for as far as sailing and everything. You're the voice of reason, or
We both.
oh, I lost your sound. Looks like you turned off your mic somehow. That's right. See the little mic? Go down there and click on your mic in the settings. See if I can do it.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
I think my
So
Bluetooth just shuffled. I don't know why that happened.
okay. So tell me what you I said, are you the more conservative one with the you're the voice of reason, and you said you both really are.
No, we're both crazy. I mean, as far as sailing is concerned, I think we have a very similar, as far as, going out into crazy weather or something, I think we're both appropriately conservative. I might be a little bit more conservative as far as returning home and not doing, I mean, I haven't truly lived abroad, like Michelle has, and that's exciting for me that somebody is, I've
Where
spent
did she live?
in Germany, in
Okay.
Australia, and then just sort of unrooted traveling
Wow.
through, traveling overseas as well. So yeah,
Crazy.
I've never quite done that. I've spent 3 months, a few months in Haiti. I've spent a few months in Palestine. I've spent up to about 6 months in St. Martin, but those aren't lengths of time that I consider really living somewhere else.
It's more than a lot of people have done.
Yeah, I found one who
It's
makes
pretty
that look like
amazing.
nothing.
Yeah, it's that's pretty amazing. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to do, unless there's something else you want to talk about, is favorite anchorages. Maybe if you could just pick two. I'm gonna pull them up. So
Sure.
because
Look,
everybody likes to know the best place, what are the secrets and everything.
yeah, Lookout Bite is my favorite. It might be my favorite. Even,
Lookout Bite. Where's North Carolina?
yep,
Okay. Ooh, look at that.
that's a really good spot. Yeah. Which it's also nice. It's 10 miles from Beaufort, which is a really awesome place to stop over. Yeah, right in there.
Let me see if I
It's
can get this situated here. Well, oh shoot. Hold on. I lost it. Here it is. Okay. Lookout Bite.
Yep.
So there it is right there.
Yeah, if
It's
you
a
move your
nice little
pointer,
protected area here.
down, that is where you want to, you can see some boats there.
Oh,
You want to be in there. It
yes.
gets really shallow around the edges of it, so you need to be careful. But the current's a little bit less there. The holding is very good. Yeah, that's a spectacular spot. So the beach just to the left of your pointer,
Right here.
yeah, you go out and go on
That's
the
beautiful.
outside, and you can walk if you scroll down. You can walk to right out onto the point there, and look, bring it down. Look at that point. It's you
Oh
can
my
tell that it's a
gosh.
cool place. Yeah. So,
Oh my
you
gosh.
know, at your own risk, being smart about it, but go swimming off of that point. This is just south of Cape Hatteras. So this is part of the graveyard of the Atlantic. It's one of the most wild feeling ocean places that you can find.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah, this
swim,
is right here and all this this current and everything.
yeah. So you've got these often conflicting currents tossing up these triangular waves off of that point. And so,
Yeah.
being safe about it, if you're a strong swimmer and you've got somebody watching you and you've got a plan, you can see it right there. The way that waves extend the point. It's really cool. And I've seen,
So I bet there's on the weekends there's just like tons of power boats all beached up here. Is that right?
it's too rough for that. Almost
Oh,
always too rough
really?
for that. Yeah. Out as far as that. They over where you enter the
Over
bite,
here?
sure. Yeah. But what there are is on the weekends. I haven't really spent any time in the true summer there, but you can tell even in the off season, people drive their huge trucks, their lifted trucks out along the beach.
Is that allowed?
Yeah, down there they do all that beach driving. So the beach
Yeah.
you zoomed in on is the other really cool part. Is there are wild horses there, and
Oh my gosh.
yeah. So
This
this
is a
place has
gorgeous place. It's so
everything. It's
natural.
spectacular. Yeah, yeah. So the wild horses on that island, and then and then in both places you get really incredible skeletons of creatures washing up on the beach.
Oh my
For beach
goodness.
combing, it's really, and then everything else that you would beachcomb for too. Um,
So,
it's
so
it's a
this is
wild
it's
place.
national park. It's a national park or
Yeah, yeah.
okay. Wow, this is a
I
cool
think that
place.
bank, Shackleford Banks, I think that's part of the preserve. Um, yeah.
Okay, so
So
you heard it
that's
here.
great. Going south, and I've weathered in that anchorage. I've gone through a nor'easter that blew 60. And it's great holding. It's a good safe place. I mean,
All
if you're
this is
anchoring,
pretty cool. Yeah, I mean all this is
definitely, yeah, yeah. I mean, going to Beaufort is awesome. I love stopping in Beaufort. It's one of it's one of my favorite stops on the trip north or south.
there's a lot going on here. This is awesome. But not too much going on. But you could tell a lot of boats go through here, power
Yeah,
boats, I'm sure.
yep.
And are you able to go through here right here?
I don't think so. I mean, definitely not on my boat. I think you'd have to be in the 3 foot draft range to get through there.
Oh, okay.
Maybe a little bit more, but yeah, the way to do it is you come in through that entrance there, either from coming rounding Hatteras and Cape Lookout on the way south, or coming out of Beaufort.
Okay, so how deep is this right here?
I think it's about a 20-foot anchorage.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. This is a great tip. I appreciate you sharing this.
it's an
Do you want to
amazing
share
spot.
one more? Do you have one more?
Yeah,
And
the one more is sort of a conglomeration. There are a lot of anchorages like this in the Caribbean.
okay.
These sort of half moon bays on uninhabited islands in the Caribbean. And so the examples that I
Right.
would give are oh man, right off the end of St. Martin, there's one, Culebrita in Puerto Rico, off of Culebra. You can do Culebrita. We'll do that as the one example.
I've
Um,
been to been to not by boat, but okay, Calibra. Let's just pull
yeah.
up Calibra. Okay.
Well, Culebra has an island off of it called Culebrita.
Okay. I've been to Vieques. Okay, here it is.
Yeah, it's really cool too.
Cayo, no, that's Cayo Luis Peña. Oh, here it is. Little Calibra is what that means. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
I took Spanish. All right, I'm gonna pull
So
this up.
when you look at what Culebrita looks like, yeah.
Let me get rid of this here. Go away. Okay.
So you can see by the water, you can see the leeward side, the flat side where it says Culebrita Beach.
Okay.
So in the Caribbean, the trade winds are always blowing some version of east. So on the west side, you see a cove like that. It go
On
in
this
down
side.
towards go a little bit up where Culebrita Beach is.
I don't see the beach. Is it
Oh,
Playa
scroll
Cristo?
just
Oh, right here. Right
yeah,
here.
exactly, right there.
Okay.
So you
All
see
right,
sort of
there's
a half moon shape like that on the west side of an island. It's in the Caribbean. It's usually going to be this kind of anchorage that I'm talking about. It's beautiful, crystal clear water. It's got turtles popping up all over the place. Culebrita, I've gone night snorkeling, which is both terrifying but also really incredible. I mean, you're anchored in an area that has beautiful wildlife and stuff. The beach is always incredible. Very often, you can pull up really close to the beach because the Caribbean tends to drop off very quickly.
trying to get rid of that. Okay.
So yeah,
How do you get in here?
it looks worse than it is because the water is so clear. It's a fairly there aren't markers, but it's a very safe
So you kind of come in this way
Yeah.
because it looks like there's a lot of coral there.
Yeah, it looks worse than it is because of the how clear the water is.
And how deep is it? Like, say, right here.
You anchor a little
Or
further in than that, actually, where those sailboats are. I think I remember it being 12 feet, 14 feet.
and then so then you got this beautiful beach,
Hmm. And
and
it's got quite a bit of elevation. You can sort of see the trail through the trees. You can walk up to this abandoned. I think the lighthouse still is lit, but it's otherwise abandoned.
is this
And on the
the
trip,
trail right here?
yeah. And going up at night is really cool. It's sort of hard to find at night, but if you go up at night with a headlamp or a flashlight, well, actually, it has to be a headlamp because the light has to be close to your eyes. If you go up at night with a headlamp, you'll see tons and tons, I mean, hundreds of eyes reflecting back at you through the brush. It's all the goats.
Oh
Um,
my gosh!
yeah.
I don't see the lighthouse. Where's the lighthouse?
If you scroll down,
Okay,
it's
down here.
I think it's basically where it says Culebrita. There's a little patch. I think that's it. Yeah, or just a little bit, I guess, further up than that.
Oh, right here. Okay.
Yep.
This looks like, what is this right here? Did this used to
It's
be bombed like in the 60s and 70s? Because I know Vieques
Cu-
was.
Culebrita might have on Culebra. There's an area that you're not supposed to enter because of unexploded ordnance. I don't think
Mm,
Culebrita. That I think was just part of. It might have been where they took some of the construction materials for the lighthouse. I remember it sort of
okay.
being. Yeah, it's actually been quite a while since I've been there. But yeah, this spot in particular is very good. But then you'll find these little keys all throughout the Caribbean. Ile Fourchou is one that's off. It's part of St. Bart's, between it pretty much exactly between St. Martin and
Well,
St. Bart's.
how did you
And
find out about this place?
I think I was just looking around on back then it was Active Captain. Now it's part of Navionics. I think I was just looking for
Mm,
anchorages on Active Captain and pulled it up. But now and the advice I'm trying to pass on is now that I know about it, if you see a little bay like that on the west side of a key, they're
yeah,
almost all this way. That it's clear water, nice sand for anchoring, turtles
and they're
popping up
everywhere.
all around the boat. They're everywhere. Yeah.
I mean,
Even
like the
even
Bahamas is full of these kind of things, right?
yeah, and even in St. Martin, the even on the main island on the French side, there are a few anchorages like that are you're anchored, you have access to grocery stores and things like
Right.
that, but then you also have turtles popping up around you.
Ugh,
It's really beautiful.
well, you're just making this sound so wonderful. Shall we go back to the video of you on the big waves? I'm just kidding. I'm just trying to be funny. It wasn't funny. This is awesome. So we got two good anchorages from you. One is on the right off the continental U.S. or on the continental U.S. and one is in St. Martin. I mean Puerto Rico. So they're both in the U.S.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Well, we've been on for just a tad over an hour. Thank you so much. I sure do appreciate it. Is there anything that you'd like to tell anybody? Want to put your how people can contact you because you're going to make $1 million on your social media, right?
Yeah, Instagram. I'll start to add to the TikTok this summer, more and more. But Instagram's the best way. I'm a big Instagram texter, so that's a
Yeah,
great
I
way to
think that's
contact
where
me.
I was able to reach you. I was
Yeah.
like, hey, I saw that video. I was like, I got to get this guy on here. This guy knows what he's doing. All right. Well, I'm going to follow up with you and Michelle. I can't wait to. I hope you document the whole thing with your photography skills and everything. You probably have a lot of editing skills.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll
You
do
could,
more of that.
and it'll pay the way, right?
It could. Yeah. Yeah, that'd be the dream.
Sure. Okay. All right. Well, we'll stay in touch with you. Thank you again for coming on. And the way I always end this after I pull up get my cue this up is this is how I end it. Salty Abandon out.